Hello. All right. How's everyone enjoying the session or the summit? What's been like your biggest takeaway so far? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Oh, you're liking it? Awesome. Hey, Joe. Automations. Yep. Yep. Financial sense. Workflows and automations. Yep. Automations, getting to share knowledge with others. Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm sorry you can't join the breakout rooms. Excited to learn about Zapier? Awesome. I'm excited too. I love automation. I'm obsessed with it. I It's just everything I do. So I hope that you all learned something from this. I hope you're able to kind of play around with it too. We'll have a little bit of a demo portion of this session, so you can actually like open up Zapier, and we're just going to walk through an example Zap together. All right. I'll just make Zapier versus Make. That's a great question. Um, I would say the biggest difference between the two of them is just the experience of using them. So I consider Zapier to be a little more user friendly. I think it's better for beginners versus Make is a little bit more of a learning curve. They both have their pros and cons though. So it just kind of depends on what you want to accomplish with them. Okay, let's see. We've got quite a few people in here. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Make is not as well known. I would say Zapier is a little more popular. So you can learn, I mean, they have a website that you can definitely learn about them. In terms of the differences, though, you could probably do a Google search on what the differences are. I don't have any specific resources about that. But if you do look in the resources tab, I do have, I put the slides. So this slide deck, you can download those. And I have quite a few workflow diagrams throughout it. So you can always download those so you can reference it later. And then I also linked a free course that was made by Zapier for getting started with Zapier. It's a really great course. So if you're kind of new to Zapier, I would recommend taking that course. And then I also linked I have a free guide that I created for. It's kind of tailored towards helping you automate with flexibility in mind. So if you wanted to have more flexibility in your life and your business, I think automation is the best way to do that. So I kind of created a guide designed around that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So this session is going to be how to automate your tech stack with Zapier. And it's designed to be more of a very, like, almost a practical application of automation. So you kind of learned about automation in prior sessions, but this is where we will actually do some automating together. So I hope you're excited about that. Make sure that you're signed up for Zapier and you have that ready to go, because we're going to walk through an automation together. And I'm also going to be sharing a lot of examples and a few client stories to give you an idea of what's possible to automate with Zapier. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And I'll make sure to address those at the very end. So I want to make sure we get through all of the content first, and we can get through that demo, and then I will address questions at the end. So you can see my screen, hopefully. Let me go ahead and kind of give an introduction about who I am. So I am a Zapier automation specialist. I've been a software developer and engineer for the last 8 years. But I started out as a software engineer, and then kind of somewhere along the way, I just really fell in love with automation, specifically automating like finance, accounting, and general just business operations. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years. And then my specialty is really just using Zapier to and a few other custom like automation techniques to be able to automate and streamline operations for service-based firms like accountants, bookkeepers, and financial advisors. And so if you wanted to connect with me kind of outside of the summit, go ahead and download the slide deck and the resources. And then here are some links that you can connect with me kind of out offline. But today we're going to be talking about what Zapier is. If you've heard of it, then great. Or if you don't really know what it is, I'm going to kind of give you a high level explanation. And then also, why should you use it to streamline your workflows? What are some of the benefits of it? And then I'll also give you examples of some transformations that I've seen from my own clients. Oops. And then also, we'll talk about what you can automate, what's even possible to automate with Zapier. And then we're also going to go through and I'm going to show you Zapier. I'm going to kind of walk you through the setup and how to kind of navigate around so that if you haven't used it before, we can kind of make sure that you understand how that works. And then we'll also walk through setting up an actual automation in Zapier to automate an example onboarding process. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with what is Zapier. I'm going to put out a poll. Let's see. Let's do this one. Okay, so you should see that poll now. Let me know if you don't. But I'm really curious to hear from all of you if you use Zapier in your firm currently. This will kind of help me get an idea of how much to cover in Zapier, whether I should focus on more kind of like high level what Zapier is, or if you already kind of know what it is, then I can get to some of the more. Oh, okay, no poll yet. It says it was published, show on stage. Oh, that's weird. Oh, it's working? It's in the poll tab. Oh, I see. So you have to go to the poll tab. Sorry, I haven't used this platform before. I'll close the poll on here. Hide poll from stage. Okay. I think you can see my screen now. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I see the results. Okay, so a lot of you have not, but you've been meaning to. So you've heard about it. Okay. Some of you have played around with it. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully this will give you a good introduction into what Zapier is. But just in high level terms, it is a no code automation platform. And basically, it gives non technical users the ability to automate processes that normally wouldn't be possible to automate otherwise. And I'll kind of explain how that works, but it's quite an amazing tool. And it's very powerful because now more than ever, automation is so accessible to everyone. And I think that's really incredible. Even as a programmer and someone who has been automating in all sorts of applications, I've automated for both corporate finance and also very, very small businesses, even solo entrepreneurs. Zapier really is quite innovative, and I've been very impressed with it. But here's kind of how it works. So I like to use this analogy with when talking about Zapier. Zapier is like the middleman between all of the apps in your tech stack. So if you have apps that have a direct integration or basically a connection with each other, for example, maybe you use Financial Sense, they have a direct integration with either Outlook or Gmail to give you the ability to view and send emails from within Financial Sense. And that's a very convenient feature, especially if you're using like email templates to kind of help streamline your email process. So let's say you had two apps that you wanted to automate and they don't have a direct integration. So let's say you are using DocuSign for your agreements and you wanted to automate a process where as soon as someone signs an agreement in DocuSign, you wanted something to happen in Financial Sense. Well, there's no direct integration between those apps, but with Zapier acting as the middleman between them, because Zapier can connect to each individual app, you can now automate that process in Zapier. And so that opens up a world of possibilities because Zapier supports over 7,000 app integrations. So the chances are the tools that you're using right now in your firm already have integrations in Zapier that you can go ahead and start using to automate your processes. So now that you kind of know what Zapier is and how it works, I'm going to talk about some of the benefits. Why would you want to integrate your tech stack and automate your workflows? So I'm going to go through some examples of benefits and results that I've seen firsthand from some of my own clients. Okay, benefit one, kind of an obvious one, time savings. Of course, you're going to save time with automation, but to kind of demonstrate just the power of that, I want to give an example of a recent client I worked with, an accounting firm. We were automating their onboarding process using a combination of like Financial Sense and also Zapier. That onboarding process used to take them up to a full day, and that has been reduced down to less than 20 minutes. So that is a huge, huge time savings. Can you imagine having to take a full day to automate one client during tax season, right? Which is probably the busiest season of the year. And you don't have time to be spending a full day onboarding clients when you're just getting tons and tons of clients, right? They want their taxes done immediately. Now that's down to 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes. That's pretty incredible. And then, of course, there's cost savings with automation. I'm working with one client right now where her goal is to, she has a full time employee dedicated to client intake. So basically, getting all the information they need from clients to be able to work on their project. She has an entire full time role dedicated to that. But with this automation that we're doing for her right now, after it's done, she'll be able to transition that girl to another role entirely. So that's effectively eliminating a full-time role in her business. So that's huge cost savings. Okay, and then of course there is, with time savings, you'll be able to serve more clients. So that will directly increase your revenue because you'll be able to serve more people and you'll be more efficient. I worked on one project where we automated the booking process and a lot of her client communications, which allowed her to increase her capacity by over 10%. And so now I also really like to talk about some of the more intangible benefits of automation that I feel like not very many people talk about, but they're actually really huge and they have a huge impact on your mental health. But having more flexibility so that you're not tied to having to do certain admin processes at certain times. Like if you have a process that has to be done very frequently on like a monthly or a weekly basis, and it has to be done at a very specific time, automating that really frees up your schedule to be able to choose how you spend your time. And I'll give an example. I had a client who had a monthly time tracking and invoicing process where she wanted to invoice clients based on time that was tracked by her employees. And she was the owner of her firm and she wanted to do that process herself. She wanted to retain control over that invoicing process. And so it wasn't something that she could delegate to someone else. And since it was monthly, she had to do it over a specific time frame every month. And that process was taking her 2 to 4 hours. And by automating it, we reduced that process down to less than 30 minutes. So instead of having to basically reserve an entire half a day during that time frame every month, we were able to automate that down. So that really freed her up. And then, of course, most of my clients report feeling way less stressed and overwhelmed and just mentally drained after implementing automation because they're no longer having to mentally keep track of all of these little admin tasks that just pile up for them. They're able to just focus on the work that they enjoy without the constant interruption of admin work, taking them away from the work that they actually truly love. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about what you can automate, what's even possible to automate with Zapier. I'm going to go through a few different areas of your firm that I definitely encourage you to just consider for automation because it's kind of hard to know without exploring it whether something should be automated. But first of all, definitely client management. So if you're using a CRM, like in this example, I have Pipedrive is a great CRM, but there's so many CRMs that this would apply to that you can use. But you will want to automate usually any kind of status updates with clients, and then also capturing contact information. That's a huge one. And then if all of these diagrams that I'm going to be showing in the next few slides, they have some logos of some apps, just to give you an example of what you can automate in Zapier, but it will apply to any, equivalent app that you are currently using. That's kind of the beauty of Zapier is it's kind of a mix and match. You just use whatever is already in your tech stack. Okay, so you'll also want to automate communications. So especially like client communications, emails, follow-up emails, and also reminders to make sure that they are actually doing and they're progressing through your pipeline and they're completing their onboarding steps in a timely manner. You can automate any kind of data entry, like collecting client information and all their documents, and then any kind of admin tasks like, invoicing and things like that. You can definitely automate. And then for file management, you can automate the managing and organization of folders and files. You can create folders, share folders, upload files. All of that really helps to automate the organization. For sales and marketing, you can set up sales funnels to nurture leads and send very targeted and personalized marketing campaigns to help encourage that conversion. And for marketing systems, you can also set up systems to be able to create content and also distribute content way more efficiently. For team operations, you can automate any kind of like team management, like task delegation, any kind of ticketing systems that you might have with clients. You can set up an automation so that as soon as like you receive a ticket, like a support ticket, you can automatically delegate that and route it to the right team member that needs to address it. And I also want to point out with any kind of team operations, for me, the biggest benefit of automation is not just the automation part, but you have to standardize the process in order to streamline it. And because of that, just the act of standardizing it reduces the amount of training that you have to do for new team members because you actually have it outlined. And of course, automating it is just an extra benefit because it's off your plate, but it's also very standardized. So that really saves a lot of time. Go ahead and put any questions that you have in the Q&A, and then I'll be able to address those at the end. Okay, so now I gave you kind of an idea of the different areas you can automate in your firm. But I'm going to go through now and talk about specific processes that you should definitely look at first. These are going to be perfect for automation because they're repetitive and they're very rules based. So they're going to be consistent, which means they will be the best return on investment because they will save you the most time with the least amount of effort to automate. And these are also processes that usually I look at very like first when I'm automating for my clients. So always any kind of like prospect or lead capture of information, the first point of contact with your firm, either they schedule a call or they fill out your inquiry form, you'll want to capture those contact information to reduce that data entry. Any kind of sales pipeline tracking, if you're using a CRM, you will want to kind of track the touch points from when they first inquire with you all the way to when they become a booked client, or when you book them as a client. You'll want to kind of automate that. Client onboarding is definitely a lot of like manual setup of like accounts and folders, sending welcome guides, setting up projects. You can definitely automate that. Any kind of like engagement letters or agreements through DocuSign, you can automate either sending them out, or you can automate when they are signed. You can do things with that information. Invoicing, definitely a big one to automate. And then if you do hourly work with clients, you can automate some of the time tracking, like analysis and reports, things like that. Okay, actually, before I go into the example sequence, I'm going to put out another poll. Let's see if I can do it right this time. Okay, so I published that. I'm going to show it on the stage. Okay, so I want you to answer this. Basically, what are the areas after going through kind of some examples? What are the areas that you see the most opportunity for automation in your firm? And then you can select multiple if you want, but I'm really curious to kind of hear what you all are kind of eyeing for automation. Okay, I see quite a bit for operations and administration. Yep. Some client experience, team and or task management. Yep. Oh yeah. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to hide this from the stage. I think you can still answer it if you want, though. Okay, now we're going to go through an example onboarding sequence in Zapier. So we're actually going to walk through it together. So everyone, go ahead and open up Zapier on your computer, and you can follow along. But for this example workflow, we're going to do the trigger is going to be a DocuSign. So if you don't have DocuSign, you can use some other equivalent that you're using for accepting signatures. And we're going to create a folder in OneDrive, or you can use Google, I guess, Google Drive if you're using that. And then we're going to upload that agreement that was signed to the OneDrive folder. And we're also going to update our CRM details to change the status to client. And we're going to link their OneDrive folder to a custom field in our CRM. So not all CRMs have the ability to have custom fields, but most of them do. So if you do have a CRM like that, like Pipedrive, you should be able to follow along. Let's see. I also want to point out that this is a very simple example. I tried to keep it simple so I don't overwhelm you all, but depending on how your onboarding process is at your firm, there are so many other steps that you could potentially automate with this onboarding sequence. So you could share the folder with the client if you want them to submit their documents to that folder. You can also create an invoice and send that to them. You can add a client to your newsletter. You can send a welcome guide to them. You can send a link to their intake questionnaire. You can set up a project in Asana or Financial Sense. I did see someone ask in the chat, can we not do all this in Financial Sense? You can do quite a bit. Financial Sense is like an automation and workflow tool. And you could probably do some of these steps in Financial Sense, but you have to think about if you're using different tools in your tech stack, you might not have just Financial Sense. You might be using DocuSign also. You might be using MailChimp for email marketing, right? So anytime that you have processes that you want to automate across different apps, that's where Zapier comes in. But I do agree, if you have Financial Sense and you are able to automate it within Financial Sense, I encourage you to do so, because why introduce all of this extra, tech to your tech stack if you don't need it? But it will definitely depend on what your needs are and what features you're looking for, and it'll kind of depend on what you're wanting, because sometimes something might not be accomplished in like an all-in-one tool, and that means you have to use some other kind of supplemental tool, and then you need to use something like Zapier to kind of keep them in sync with each other. So I hope that kind of clarifies that. Let's go ahead and do the Zapier setup and walkthrough. So I'm going to exit out of here and I'm going to show you my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see Zapier. This is the home screen. So once you sign up for an account, it'll kind of look like this. And what I want you to do is we're going to kind of explore this integrations screen in Zapier. And this is where they have all of their integrations listed out. So all of the apps that they support. And this is where you can kind of browse to see what they have. So you can browse by category, or usually I will search. So I'll do a search like Financial Sense. Let's see what they have available. So this is their integration. And from here, I will scroll all the way to the bottom, usually, to see what their supported triggers and actions are. This is where I kind of get an understanding of what is possible to automate in Zapier. So they have little toggles here. So these are the triggers that they support. So a trigger is what triggers the automation. It's the event that will have actions associated with it. So like if you wanted to have an automation that triggered when a new client is created in Financial Sense, this would be the trigger that you would use. And then you can also see what actions are supported. So maybe when a new client is created, you want to automate and you want to create a project. I don't know, something like that. And then these are the fields that you would need to map in as inputs to this action step. So I definitely encourage you to just kind of explore what is available with the tools that you currently use in your firm. And then from there, let's go back to our Zapier screen. Let's go ahead and start an automation. Seems like it's important to weigh the benefits of taking it. Yep. Oh, definitely. Yes. Yes. It's very important because you don't want to go down a rabbit hole of trying to get things set up in a tool and then you realize it's not possible, and so you're spending all of this money on this all-in-one tool that just actually doesn't meet your needs. Or you have the opposite problem where you're trying to set up like all of this complicated stuff across all these tools and you realize that you could have just gone with one tool that met pretty much all your needs, and you didn't waste the time trying to set up this elaborate system with Zapier or whatever. So I love that. So let's automate that onboarding process. So I'm just going to pull this up on my other screen so that I can see that. But we've got, okay. So we have that onboarding process. We're going to trigger on when a DocuSign agreement is signed. So I'm going to use this little AI feature. It's pretty cool. You can try it out, but basically you can just describe what you're looking for and what you want to automate, and it will set it up for you. So let's go ahead and do, okay. So when a DocuSign envelope is signed, create OneDrive folder. So let's see what it comes up with. Okay, that looks good. And then let's say I also want to upload file to OneDrive. Okay, so added that step as well. And then the last step is I want to update a contact in, I'll use Pipedrive as the CRM. Okay, so these are all the steps. So I'm going to just go with that. Looks good. Okay, so let's start with this trigger. So this is going to be what triggers the automation to happen. And if you don't have your account already connected, it will walk you through how to connect it. If you're already logged in, it might be super easy and you don't have to really do anything. Otherwise, it'll kind of walk you through instructions. So for the trigger, this is going to trigger when an envelope status is updated in DocuSign, which is great, but I actually want it to trigger only when it's completed because that means it was signed. And then let's test this. This is going to grab the latest documents that have been completed in your DocuSign account. So hopefully it will grab the test one that I created earlier. Okay, so this is the test document that I signed. And so all of these are the outputs of the trigger. And this is very important because some of these will be used as inputs to some of these actions. And just making sure you're all kind of following along okay, right? So you have Zapier pulled up, let's see, have you found the cost of Zapier is still positive versus other options? I mean, it depends on what you want to do with it. I would say if you're going to pay for Zapier, definitely take advantage of it. You get 750 tasks a month. You should just automate everything you can possibly think to automate. But yes, the cost will be worth it, especially for those things that you're doing over and over. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next, oops, there we go. The next action, create a folder. But in this case, I actually want to find it first because, oops, find a folder. Because if, let's say I'm onboarding a client that I've already onboarded previously, like they're a return client, or if I've already created a folder for them, I don't want to create a duplicate folder. So I'm going to find the folder that already exists for them first, or at least I'm going to try to find it. So in this folder, I know I'm going to search I created this client's demo folder. So this is in OneDrive. I created this for the demo. And this dropdown is going to link to all of your folders that you have connected. And the name I want to be just the name of the signer. And then I'm going to create it if it doesn't already exist. So this is a really convenient feature. So it's going to find it. And then let me just rename this to make it more clear. But I'm going to find and then I'm going to create if it doesn't already exist. So let's go ahead and test that. Okay, can't follow along if no DocuSign Pipedrive account. That's true, but if you have an equivalent, so let's say you use HelloSign instead, or some other kind of like document signing app, you can use that instead of DocuSign. This Zapier is going to be like a mix and match. Whatever tools you are using, you're going to use those in Zapier. There's also a free version of Zapier. Yes, it's very limited. You have 100 tasks per month and you can't have multi-step zaps like this. You can only have one trigger and one action. But yes, you could still automate quite a bit with that. So I encourage you to try the free account first to see what you can do. All right, let's see what happened. If I refresh this, okay, yep, it created a test client folder, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. And so now, what is your folder structures last versus, oh yeah, you can do, so that would be a little bit trickier This is a bit more advanced, but you would have a formatter step and you would need to split the first name and last name. If you wanted to have like, so someone was asking, what if I wanted this to be last name, comma, comma, first name? Well, the input, or I guess the output from the trigger is just the name. They don't have first name, last name split up. And that's why you would need to have a formatter step to split the first name and last name. And then you'd be able to map those separate fields in here, if that makes sense. Okay, let me keep going. Let's upload the file that we just got from this trigger. And we're going to upload it to the folder we just created. So this is going to be, instead of selecting from this drop down, I'm going to map it to an output of this one. So it needs me to do this again. So OneDrive is kind of weird, and you'll probably see this, but I explained how this should do a find or create. So you'd think that it would find the folder that I just created, but sometimes it doesn't because it has a delay. Sometimes the API can't find a folder that it just created, so it might create a duplicate. Yeah, so it created a duplicate, but that's okay. We'll just keep going with this test client one. If you were running this like say 15 minutes later, it should find the folder that it just created here. But we just need to keep going with this step. So I'm going to map this to the output of this, the folder path, so that this is going to be the folder that it uploads the DocuSign file to. Let's see. Can you use SharePoint instead of OneDrive? Yes. Yes, you can do SharePoint. It's a little bit trickier, but it should have, I'm pretty sure it has the same actions. Share file also works. Yes. Okay. Let me map the file. So if I search for file, it's going to be this one here, or I believe this one would also work, but this is going to have basically the combined envelope. And for the name, I'm going to call it engagement letter dash, and I'll put the signer's name and then a .pdf. Let me test this, and it should upload the file, this agreement that was signed. So if I go in here, okay, so this is what it uploaded. So this was just my test DocuSign. So yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it just automates that step. So it's, it's a little task that takes you a few seconds, but it adds up, and then you have to kind of interrupt what you're doing to be able to do it. So automating it is just kind of a huge benefit. So now let's update our person in Pipedrive. So I have this contact that I created in Pipedrive, and I labeled them as a warm lead. So now that they've signed my engagement letter, I want to change this to a customer. And then I also want to map their OneDrive link here so that if I wanted to access their OneDrive link from Pipedrive, it's kind of nice to just have everything centralized in one place. I don't have to try and dig around for it in OneDrive. I can just link it directly here. We're going to do that as well. So here we can't hard code this client, right? We want to map this to whoever our signer is. So we actually need to add a step here to be able to find the client first before we can update them in Zapier. So I'm going to do find a person. And then I'm going to search by their email. Email is a little bit more reliable than a name because names could be duplicates. You could have two clients with the same name. Let's see, create a person if it doesn't exist. Oh yeah, I need to put their name here. So this will create them if they don't already exist. I think here's the email. Now I know that they already do exist. So this should be able to find the one that I already created. Okay, so it found this person that I created. And so now we'll be able to map that person here. So we found them in this step and we want to map their ID. And so now this is where we can update their, let's see, label. We're going to change them to a customer. And then the OneDrive is going to be an output of this step. And if I search for URL, it should show up here. So this is the OneDrive link. So let's test this. Okay, so now if we go in here, we see that they've been updated to a customer. And then here's the OneDrive link. So I would be able to just click this, and here it is. So that's kind of a convenient way to just kind of put everything in one place as part of your onboarding process. So let me just look at the chat really quick. So another thing you might want to do if you're using Financial Sense, I'll just show this really quick. If you wanted to like create a client as part of your onboarding process, you can do the same thing. So first you would find the client and you would do it by their name. They only have the ability to find clients by their name, and then you can create them if they don't exist. And then you might also want to, like, after you create the client, you can create a project that's linked to that client in Financial Sense. Do you want me to go through that process? Let's see what's going on in the chat. Sorry, there's so many of you. Okay, I'll show you. I'm gonna do their email here. I'm pretty sure there's already a test client in here, so it should find someone. Yep. So this one already exists. So now let's do another Financial Sense. And we're going to create a project. And then the template, we can do whatever, I don't know, maybe client onboarding. And then, so this would be the drop down of templates that you have in Financial Sense that you would be able to map to this field. And then you'll select the client that you just created. You would select their ID. And then the Zapier date is, I'm pretty sure it's some kind of configuration in Financial Sense. It might be the start date, or it might be like a calculation of a date. And so you can put that in here. Let's do like, I don't know, created signed date time. This might work. I've found this field to be a little bit tricky. Sometimes the format works. Sometimes you have to do like a formatter step to like change the date to be the right format. But if we test this, it should create a project, and that project should be linked to our client. Okay, let's see what else. Let me go to the Q&A now. I want to make sure I answer some of these. So Financial Sense would create the list of things that needs to be done, and Zapier would automate some of those processes. Possibly. You could have a trigger in Zapier. Well, actually, I don't think so. Let me do a search for Zapier Financial. I don't think you can trigger Zapier on like tasks in Financial Sense. The only triggers you have are whether you have a new client or new contact. So that would be tricky to automate. I would say the capabilities of Zapier will very much depend on the tools that you're using. There are some tools like Pipedrive that have a lot more integrations with Zapier. And then there's some tools like Financial Sense where there's a lot more almost like automation within Financial Sense that you can do, but the integrations are not quite as extensive. So it kind of it's a case by case basis whether you can do things. Can I have Zapier pull bank statements each month? That one would be tricky. If you're getting because the bank statement comes from your bank, right? I don't think you have a way to get that bank statement to like your email. Because if you could set it up within your bank to like automatically send you the bank statement to your email, then you can. Zapier can access your email to be able to pull that bank statement and put it wherever you want. The tricky thing is Zapier doesn't have many integrations with actual banks. Those are really hard to integrate with because they're financial institutions and they're usually very uptight about, security. They don't usually like to do integrations with things like Zapier. Oh, here's a question. Okay, it looks like Zapier is creating/writing code. If that's accurate, can I use an outsourced IT service and security firm? Would there be potential security concerns or conflicts to address with them? Zapier is very secure. You can code in Zapier. Let me just show you really quick. I use this all the time. But, you can't just like, you do have the potential to do some damage, with a code step. But if you know what you're doing, then it's there's nothing to be worried about security-wise, because the way that the authentication works with Zapier is you can only access your data if you are signed in. Like, you have to give it permission, and it only has permission to do things that you would be able to do as a user yourself. But to answer your question, if you were to outsource it to an IT team, yes, you do have to be careful because you're essentially giving them access to your accounts. So only give people access to your Zapier and your accounts if you trust them, because everything that you do in Zapier, you can do as if you were doing it yourself. So you probably wouldn't want to just hire someone off the street to have access to all your accounts. So that's a good question. Is it possible to automate invoices that need work order attachments? You can attach documents to invoices, I'm pretty sure. QuickBooks. Create invoice. There's so many actions. Invoice. Oh, I don't. Well, do I have an account? I think I have like a sandbox account. Uh, let me show you. If I do a search for, okay, that's weird. I've never had it not show up here before. Let me just do. Okay, this is it. So create an invoice does have the ability to do attachments, I'm pretty sure. One of these. Actually, maybe not. I might be wrong. So no, I don't think you can do attachments in QuickBooks, but you might be able to with Zero or something else. Can you have it set up folders within folders? Yes, yes, you can have nested folders. I really love that feature. So you can have like another find or create folder step here. So let's say you have like in your OneDrive, each client has their own folder, but then within each folder, you want to have a folder for like agreements, a folder for personal tax documents, things like that. You can definitely do that. You would just add another step in here. So this would be just another find or create folder step. So it would find the first client folder, and then within that, it would try to find like the agreements folder or whatever. And if it doesn't find it, it will create it. So yes. Can Zapier be a possibility for saving documents that a client saves to the Financial Sense portal and then save them to Dropbox with the uploading to the portal being the trigger? No, I don't think that's an available trigger, but I could have sworn Financial Sense is working on a direct integration with like what I think with OneDrive or something like that. So you might be able to do it with that. Or yeah, I don't think you can access client documents from the Financial Sense API. Okay, can we create an automation from ignition to projects when the engagement is? Yeah, there should be I'm pretty sure there is ignition. Ignition. Sorry, that's hard to say. Um, yeah, definitely. So you could just, I guess you can only just create the client. So if engagement is signed, then you can create a client. Is it possible to automate batch deposits from Stripe or Square into QuickBooks? Details the customer class and fee that was deducted prior to the deposit. I'm pretty sure batch deposits. Yes. So I really like the Stripe integration. Any data that you have available, you can use in automations. So Stripe, let's see what Stripe triggers they have. Uh, deposits from Stripe. There should be, I wonder if there's like a new deposit. Or I guess maybe a new payment. We'd have to yeah, you'd have to kind of explore that one, but I think something like that should be possible. Okay, sorry, we're a little bit out of time. Can integrate Stripe AR to Quick. Yes, you can integrate Stripe with QuickBooks.